Men and emotions operate on different timelines. Unlike women, who often process emotions more openly and immediately, men tend to take a longer, more internalized route to developing feelings. This difference is not accidental. It is deeply ingrained in psychological and social conditioning, shaping how men navigate relationships, emotional bonds, and even their understanding of themselves. From a young age, men are taught to prioritize logic, strength, and independence over emotional expression. They are often conditioned to suppress vulnerability, leading them to develop feelings in a delayed and sometimes unrecognized manner. While a woman may quickly identify her emotions and express them, a man often requires time, consistency, and repeated experiences to fully acknowledge and accept what he feels. One reason for this delay is the way men process emotional information. Unlike women, who are more likely to discuss emotions with friends and seek validation through verbal expression, men tend to internalize their feelings and analyze them privately. A man may feel something, but will not necessarily label it as love, care, or attachment right away. Instead, he will observe, test, and evaluate his emotions over time before he allows himself to fully accept them. Another key factor is how men prioritize emotional security. A man does not want to be vulnerable too soon, especially if he is unsure whether the situation or person is trustworthy. He needs to feel safe before fully opening up. And that safety is not based on words alone. A man evaluates consistency, actions, and long-term behavior before he begins to trust his own emotions. This is why some men may appear distant or slow to commit, not because they don't feel, but because they need time to be certain that their emotions are built on a solid foundation. It's also important to understand that men form emotional attachments differently than women. For many women, emotions can develop through conversation, shared moments, and deep discussions. For men, feelings are often built through shared experiences, problem solving, and a sense of purpose within a connection. A man's feelings strengthen when he feels like he is adding value, when he sees that his presence is meaningful, and when he is allowed to develop an emotional connection through actions rather than just words. This is why men sometimes realize their emotions later than expected. They might spend months or even years around someone, growing emotionally attached without consciously recognizing it. Then one day, when that connection is threatened or lost, the depth of their feelings becomes undeniable. Many men only understand the true weight of their emotions when they experience distance, separation, or the fear of losing something they had taken for granted. The delayed realization of emotions in men is not a flaw. It is a function of how their minds and emotions are wired. Unlike women, who might feel emotionally drawn to someone after a few meaningful conversations, men often need repeated, consistent experiences to fully embrace what they are feeling. This process can be frustrating to those who expect instant emotional validation, but it is simply the way men develop lasting and genuine connections. Men are also deeply influenced by their past experiences, and this impacts the time it takes for them to develop feelings. If a man has been hurt before, whether through betrayal, rejection, or emotional disappointment, he will subconsciously protect himself by extending the time it takes to trust his own emotions. He may hesitate to invest emotionally, not because he lacks feelings, but because he has trained himself to be cautious. Additionally, societal expectations shape how men approach emotions. In many cultures, men are praised for being emotionally controlled and reserved, while emotional expression is often seen as weakness. This leads to a pattern where men subconsciously delay their emotional responses. even when they are feeling something deeply. A man might tell himself that he shouldn't feel too much too soon, causing him to suppress or second-guess his emotions rather than embracing them. One of the most misunderstood aspects of male emotional development is that men do not typically fall in love in a sudden, dramatic way. Instead, their emotions build gradually through repeated exposure and shared experiences. The more time a man spends with someone, the more his feelings evolve. This is why men often become more emotionally attached over time, while women might feel strongly from the beginning. A man might not recognize the depth of his emotions until he finds himself missing someone, thinking about them constantly, or feeling a deep sense of loss in their absence. This slow development of emotions explains why some men struggle with expressing their feelings in the early stages of a relationship. They may genuinely care, but may not yet have reached the point of emotional clarity where they can put those feelings into words. This is often mistaken as emotional detachment, when in reality, it is just the natural process of how men connect. Many men also struggle with emotional vulnerability because they have been taught to equate emotional expression with weakness. This means that even when a man begins to develop feelings, he might resist acknowledging them, fearing that doing so makes him too exposed or dependent. Instead of openly admitting his emotions, he may attempt to rationalize them, test them, or even suppress them until they become undeniable. Because of this emotional processing difference, men often develop strong attachments over time. Unlike an immediate, overwhelming emotional response, men tend to build a deep-rooted emotional connection that lasts. This explains why many men struggle to move on from relationships long after they have ended. Their emotions are not immediate. They're gradual, layered, and deeply tied to experiences and memories. Men do not lack emotions, nor do they develop feelings in a shallow way. They simply process them differently, allowing time and experience to shape what they feel. Understanding this difference is key to navigating relationships, emotional growth, and the way men ultimately express love and connection. A man's emotions are not shaped by words alone, but by the experiences he has with someone over time. While words may be persuasive, they do not hold the same weight for a man as actions, consistency, and shared moments. A man does not simply hear something and immediately internalize it as truth. He evaluates, observes, and tests through real-life interactions before allowing himself to fully trust his emotions. For a man, feelings are built through what he experiences firsthand. He needs to see that what is being said aligns with what is being done. This is why a man may not immediately react emotionally to verbal affection, compliments, or declarations of love. While these things are appreciated, they do not create deep feelings on their own. Instead, a man develops his emotions through actions that prove reliability, trust, and emotional safety over time. When a man spends time with someone, he subconsciously takes note of the way that person makes him feel in different situations. He observes how they respond to challenges, how they handle stress, and whether they remain consistent in their words and actions. These experiences shape his emotional connection far more than any single conversation or verbal exchange. A man may not even be fully aware of how much he is processing, but over time, the accumulation of these experiences creates a foundation for deep emotional attachment. One of the most important aspects of how a man develops feelings is how he perceives value in a connection. A man does not fall for someone just because they are available. He falls for someone who brings a unique and irreplaceable experience into his life. If he feels a sense of purpose, if he feels understood, if he feels that his presence matters, his emotions begin to deepen naturally. He needs to feel that there is something special about the bond, something that cannot be easily replicated. This is why men often fall for someone after they have built shared memories and experiences. It is not the initial attraction that makes a man deeply attached. It is the process of going through life together, solving problems, overcoming challenges, and feeling a sense of belonging that solidifies his emotions. A man does not just want words, he wants to see proof, to feel the connection in a tangible way. Many men do not realize they are developing emotions until they reflect on how much someone has become a part of their daily life. It is not the grand gestures that make the biggest impact. It is the small, consistent experiences that create a deep emotional bond. A man values the quiet moments, the inside jokes, the reliability of knowing that someone will be there through both the highs and the lows. This is why time plays a crucial role in a man's emotional development. Feelings do not happen instantly for him because he does not base them on fleeting emotions. Instead, he needs repeated interactions that confirm his emotions are valid. He must feel that the connection is real, that it is not just based on temporary excitement or words that could easily change. A man's emotions also grow stronger when he is given the space to contribute to the relationship in a meaningful way. He wants to feel needed, not in a dependent sense, but in a way that makes him feel like he is adding real value. When he sees that his efforts matter, that his presence makes a difference, his emotional investment deepens. It is not just about what he receives, it is about what he gives and how that giving strengthens the bond he feels. Because a man processes emotions through experience, his feelings often come with a sense of delayed realization. He may not immediately recognize how deeply he cares for someone until a significant moment makes it clear. Sometimes it takes distance or the possibility of loss for a man to fully understand how much someone means to him. When he looks back and sees how much someone has been integrated into his life, how much they have influenced his emotions and decisions, he realizes the depth of his feelings. This explains why men often struggle with emotional expression in the early stages of a relationship. They do not always have the words to articulate what they are feeling because they are still in the process of internalizing it. While someone may expect verbal affirmation, a man is still evaluating the emotional weight of his experiences, and until he fully processes those emotions, he may not be able to express them clearly. A man is drawn to stability and consistency. He is not necessarily swayed by sudden emotional highs, but by the steady presence of someone who brings value into his life in a real and meaningful way. When he sees that he can rely on a connection, when he experiences moments that reinforce trust and emotional security, his feelings evolve naturally. It is never just about the words. Words can be spoken by anyone. It is about what is proven over time. Because a man's emotions are built through actions, this also means that his attachment tends to be deeper and more long-lasting. When a man finally realizes his feelings, they are not surface level or temporary. They are rooted in the experiences that have shaped them. His emotions have been tested, refined, and solidified through real-life interactions, making them much harder to break or replace. This is why men often struggle to move on after a deep emotional connection is formed. While they may not have recognized their emotions as quickly as women do, once those emotions are fully developed, they are not easily forgotten. The experiences that created those feelings remain in his mind, reinforcing the emotional bond even when the relationship has ended. A man's emotional journey is shaped by the trust he builds within himself before he fully allows himself to embrace his feelings for someone else. Unlike an immediate emotional response, his feelings evolve through a process of internal evaluation, where he seeks assurance that what he is experiencing is real, stable, and worth investing in. This is not due to a lack of emotion, but rather a natural protective mechanism that ensures his heart is placed in the right hands. A man does not rush into emotions without first assessing the situation. His logical mind often competes with his emotional self, making him question whether his feelings are genuine or merely a reaction to temporary circumstances. He may feel a growing attachment, but instead of immediately acting on it, he will observe, analyze, and even test his emotions to determine whether they are based on something real or just a fleeting moment of excitement. This cautious approach is not necessarily intentional. It is deeply ingrained in the way men are wired. A significant part of this process is rooted in the fact that men place a high value on emotional security. Before he allows himself to fully embrace his emotions, he wants to be certain that he will not regret his investment. He evaluates not just how he feels, but how the person he is developing feelings for aligns with his values, his long-term vision, and his sense of emotional safety. This is why a man may seem slow to commit emotionally. He is not avoiding connection, but rather ensuring that when he does commit, it is with complete certainty. Trust is the foundation of a man's emotional development. Without it, he cannot fully let his guard down. Trust is not just about believing that someone will be loyal. It is about feeling secure enough to be vulnerable without fear of emotional harm. A man needs to know that his emotions will not be manipulated, dismissed, or taken for granted. He carefully watches how someone responds to him in different situations, whether they are supportive during challenges, whether they respect his boundaries, and whether they provide a space where he can be himself without judgment. A man's emotional investment is often gradual because he is testing for emotional consistency. He wants to see if the connection is real beyond the initial attraction. He may observe how someone behaves over time, whether they are the same person in different circumstances, whether their words align with their actions, and whether they maintain their authenticity even when things become difficult. It is through these observations that a man begins to trust not only the relationship, but his own emotions within it. One of the biggest factors that delay a man's emotional commitment is past experiences. If a man has been hurt before, whether through betrayal, rejection, or emotional manipulation, he becomes more cautious with his feelings. He may have developed subconscious defenses that prevent him from falling too quickly, not because he does not feel, but because he fears repeating past pain. These emotional scars shape how he approaches new connections, making him more likely to take his time before allowing himself to fully trust and invest in someone emotionally. Men often compartmentalize their emotions, placing them in a mental space where they can be analyzed without overwhelming them. While women may process emotions through discussion and expression, men often do so in solitude. He may need time alone to reflect on what he is feeling, to assess whether his emotions align with his goals and values, and to determine whether his connection with someone is built on something solid. During this period of internal evaluation, a man may appear distant or detached, but in reality, he is working through his emotions in his own way. The process of developing feelings is not about avoiding emotions, but ensuring that they are placed in the right hands. A man wants to feel that his emotions are valued, that his presence is appreciated beyond what he can provide, and that he is respected for who he is. He is not simply seeking attraction. He is looking for a connection that aligns with his deeper sense of purpose. If he does not feel this alignment, he may hesitate to fully invest, even if he feels an emotional pull. One of the reasons men take time to develop feelings is that they subconsciously associate emotional investment with long-term responsibility. When a man allows himself to care deeply, He knows that it is not just about the present moment. It is about the future that comes with it. He does not want to invest in something temporary or uncertain. So he takes his time to ensure that when he does commit emotionally, it is with full conviction. This process of emotional evaluation explains why a man's love often appears to grow stronger over time rather than being immediate and overwhelming. While some emotions may come instantly, true emotional depth for a man is built through repeated experiences that reinforce his trust. The more he sees that his emotions are safe, the more he allows himself to embrace them fully. Men also place great importance on how they feel within a relationship, not just about the other person, but about themselves. If a man feels like he is growing, like he is becoming a better version of himself, and like he's being appreciated for his efforts, his emotional investment deepens naturally. He is not just falling for the person, he is falling for the way he feels around them. This explains why men often develop deeper emotions after prolonged exposure to someone rather than at first sight. While initial attraction may spark interest, true emotional attachment is built over time through consistent positive reinforcement. The more a man experiences stability, trust, and emotional safety, the more he allows himself to embrace his feelings without hesitation. A man's emotional connection is not solely dependent on what he feels in the moment, but on the way those emotions are reinforced through shared experiences over time. While attraction and excitement can spark interest, true emotional depth is cultivated through consistent interactions that prove the value and meaning of the connection. A man does not develop deep feelings based on fleeting moments. Rather, his emotions solidify when he repeatedly experiences positive reinforcement that makes him feel safe, appreciated, and valued. This process is gradual because a man naturally seeks proof before fully allowing himself to become emotionally invested. He watches how the other person behaves over time, how they handle challenges, and whether they remain consistent in their actions and words. If he sees a pattern of reliability, kindness, and emotional stability, his feelings begin to deepen. If, however, he notices inconsistencies, he may hesitate or withdraw emotionally. This is because his emotions are not just tied to what he feels in the present, but also to what he anticipates for the future. A man needs to see that a connection is worth investing in before he allows himself to embrace his emotions completely. This is why feelings for a man are often built on repeated experiences rather than instant emotional reactions. He may enjoy spending time with someone, but true emotional attachment only develops when he repeatedly experiences moments that strengthen his trust and deepen his emotional connection. One of the strongest reinforcements for a man's emotional development is the feeling of being valued for who he is, rather than for what he provides. Many men are accustomed to being appreciated for their achievements, efforts, or ability to provide. But what truly deepens a man's emotional connection is when he feels seen and appreciated beyond those things. If he feels that someone values his thoughts, his emotions, and his presence, not just his actions, he begins to attach more deeply. Consistency plays a crucial role in how a man develops feelings. When he experiences repeated patterns of support, understanding, and positivity, his mind begins to associate those emotions with the person he is developing a connection with. This is why men often develop deep emotions after a prolonged period of exposure rather than after a single moment of excitement. The brain naturally forms emotional attachments to people who consistently provide a sense of stability and well-being. A man also deepens his emotional connection when he feels that he can be himself without judgment. If he experiences repeated moments where he is able to express his thoughts, emotions, and vulnerabilities without fear of rejection or criticism, he begins to trust the connection more. This level of emotional security allows his feelings to evolve naturally. On the other hand, If he feels that he has to constantly prove himself or suppress his emotions, he may struggle to fully embrace his feelings. Shared experiences also play a vital role in reinforcing a man's emotional bond. When he repeatedly goes through meaningful experiences with someone, whether they are simple moments of laughter, deep conversations, or overcoming challenges together, those memories become embedded in his emotional framework. These shared experiences serve as emotional markers that remind him of the connection, strengthening his attachment over time. Trust is reinforced through repeated positive interactions. If a man consistently experiences honesty, transparency, and emotional support, he begins to let his guard down and trust his emotions more freely. On the other hand, if he encounters inconsistencies, dishonesty, or emotional unpredictability, he may instinctively pull back. This is because his emotional brain is wired to protect him from potential harm, and any sign of instability can trigger hesitation in his emotional development. A man's emotions also grow when he sees long-term potential in a connection. If he experiences repeated moments that align with his vision of a meaningful relationship, he begins to invest more emotionally. He does not just see the present. He evaluates how the connection fits into his future. If he consistently experiences moments that make him feel understood, respected, and valued, his feelings naturally intensify. Another key factor in reinforcing a man's emotions is the presence of emotional reciprocity. A man does not just want to feel deeply, he wants to know that his emotions are met with equal depth and sincerity. If he repeatedly sees that his feelings are acknowledged, respected, and reciprocated, his attachment strengthens. However, if he experiences moments where he feels his emotions are dismissed, taken for granted, or not valued, he may subconsciously begin to detach. Physical presence and quality time also serve as reinforcements for a man's emotional connection. While words can be powerful, a man's emotions are often tied to real-life experiences and the way someone makes him feel in their presence. If he repeatedly experiences warmth, comfort, and a sense of belonging, those emotions become associated with the person he is growing attached to. A man's feelings deepen when he realizes that the connection is not just about convenience, but about genuine emotional significance. If he repeatedly experiences signs that show he is appreciated for who he is, not just what he can do, he becomes more emotionally invested. The more he sees that his emotions are valued, the more he allows himself to fully embrace them. The process of emotional reinforcement is not just about the positive moments, it is also about how challenges are handled. If a man experiences repeated moments where conflicts are resolved with understanding and respect, his emotional security in the relationship grows. He begins to trust that even in difficult moments, the connection remains strong. Men develop feelings based on what they repeatedly experience, not just what they are told. Actions, consistency, and emotional stability shape their emotions more than fleeting moments of excitement. The more a man experiences a connection that aligns with his emotional needs, the stronger his attachment becomes. A man's emotional development is deeply influenced by his subconscious mind, which plays a critical role in how he processes, understands, and ultimately accepts his feelings. While emotions may seem like sudden waves that crash unexpectedly, for a man they are often formed through a series of subconscious evaluations that occur long before he consciously acknowledges them. His mind is constantly scanning, assessing, and filtering his experiences, shaping the way he feels without him even realizing it. This is why a man may not always recognize his emotions immediately, and why his attachment grows gradually rather than in an instant. The subconscious mind is responsible for storing past experiences, learned behaviors, and emotional responses that dictate how a man reacts to situations. Every emotional connection he has had in the past, whether good or bad, leaves an imprint on his subconscious. These imprints influence how he processes new relationships and whether he allows himself to develop deep feelings. If his subconscious associates emotional vulnerability with pain or disappointment, he may instinctively resist attachment, even if his conscious mind wants to connect. On the other hand, if he has experienced trust and emotional security in the past, his subconscious will reinforce those feelings, making it easier for him to embrace new emotions. The way a man develops feelings is largely shaped by his subconscious need for emotional safety. His mind is constantly evaluating whether a connection feels secure, whether he can trust the person, and whether he is allowed to express his emotions without fear of rejection. If his subconscious registers an environment of emotional safety, he gradually begins to open up. However, if he senses even subtle signs of emotional instability, he may instinctively pull back, sometimes without even understanding why. His subconscious is always working in the background, determining whether his emotions should be nurtured or suppressed. A man's subconscious also plays a role in how he views emotional investment. Men are often taught, whether through societal conditioning or personal experience, that emotions should be controlled and not given freely. Because of this, his subconscious mind acts as a gatekeeper, ensuring that his emotions are only invested where they are truly valued. He may feel an emotional pull, but unless his subconscious determines that the connection is worth it, he will hesitate before fully embracing those emotions. Another powerful influence of the subconscious mind is the association between emotions and past relationships. If a man has experienced heartbreak, betrayal, or disappointment, his subconscious will create protective mechanisms to prevent future emotional pain. Even if he meets someone new, his subconscious may remind him of past experiences, causing him to move cautiously. He may not consciously recognize that he is being defensive, but his subconscious mind is guiding him based on previous emotional patterns. The subconscious mind also shapes a man's perception of what love and emotional connection should feel like. If he has grown up witnessing healthy relationships filled with trust, respect, and emotional support, his subconscious will naturally seek the same in his personal life. However, if his past experiences have been filled with instability, manipulation, or emotional neglect, his subconscious may resist deep emotional connections, fearing that they will lead to pain. This internal conflict can cause a man to develop feelings slowly as his subconscious works to reconcile past experiences with present realities. A man's emotions are also influenced by the subconscious messages he receives from his environment. If he is surrounded by people who reinforce the idea that vulnerability is a weakness, his subconscious will create barriers that make it difficult for him to fully embrace his emotions. However, if he is in an environment that encourages emotional expression and reassures him that his feelings are valued, his subconscious will gradually allow him to open up. The messages he absorbs from society, friends, and even past partners all play a role in how his subconscious processes and develops feelings. The subconscious mind does not respond to words alone. It responds to patterns and consistency. A man's feelings will not deepen based on what someone tells him in a single moment, but based on what he repeatedly experiences. His subconscious is always looking for proof that he is safe, proof that he is valued, and proof that his emotions will be met with the same depth and sincerity. If his subconscious registers repeated experiences of emotional stability, kindness, and trust, it will allow him to develop stronger feelings. However, if it detects inconsistencies, red flags, or emotional unpredictability. It will activate protective mechanisms that slow down or even block his emotional attachment. Another key factor in a man's emotional development is the subconscious reinforcement of attraction. While initial attraction may be based on physical appearance or chemistry, long-term emotional attachment is developed through repeated subconscious reinforcement. A man begins to associate certain behaviors, experiences, and emotions with the person he is connecting with. If those experiences are positive and fulfilling, his subconscious will strengthen his emotional bond. If they are negative or create doubt, his subconscious will resist deeper attachment. The way a man develops emotions is also influenced by his subconscious understanding of his own self-worth. If he subconsciously believes that he is worthy of love, respect, and emotional connection, he will be more open to developing feelings. However, if his subconscious has been conditioned to believe that love requires constant effort, that he must prove his worth, or that emotional attachment leads to disappointment, he will struggle to fully embrace his feelings. His subconscious beliefs about himself dictate how he allows himself to feel. The subconscious mind is also responsible for creating emotional triggers. Certain words, behaviors, or experiences can activate emotional responses without a man consciously realizing why. For example, if he has been hurt in the past by someone who displayed certain behaviors, his subconscious may cause him to become distant or hesitant when he encounters similar behaviors in a new relationship. Likewise, if he has experienced love and security through specific gestures, his subconscious will reinforce those positive emotions when he experiences them again. A man's emotional development is not just about what he feels in the present moment. It is about the subconscious blueprint that has been shaped by his past. Every experience he has had contributes to the way he processes emotions today. His subconscious is always working, guiding his heart, while his conscious mind tries to rationalize what he is feeling. This is why a man's emotions often develop over time, as his subconscious mind gradually accepts, processes, and reinforces his feelings. A man's ability to embrace and express his emotions is deeply tied to his internal sense of security and self-awareness. Unlike fleeting attractions that come and go, true emotional depth requires a foundation of stability that allows him to fully engage with his feelings without fear of vulnerability or rejection. For many men, the process of developing emotions is not just about how they feel in the moment, but about whether they believe they are in a space where their emotions are respected, reciprocated, and safe. This is why men who have developed strong emotional intelligence tend to navigate their feelings with more confidence, while those who struggle with internal insecurities often find themselves hesitating, questioning, or even suppressing their emotions. A man does not just wake up one day and decide to feel deeply about someone. His emotions unfold in response to the emotional climate around him. If he senses that he is in an environment where he is free to express his thoughts, share his concerns, and be vulnerable without judgment, his feelings will naturally deepen. But if he detects uncertainty, emotional inconsistency, or a lack of understanding, his mind will instinctively put up walls to protect himself. This is not necessarily a conscious decision. It is often an automatic response that stems from years of learned behavior. The level of security a man feels within himself also plays a major role in how he processes emotions. If he is confident in who he is, if he understands his worth, and if he has a strong sense of emotional independence, he is more likely to embrace his feelings when they arise. He does not need external validation to confirm what he feels because he trusts himself enough to know when something is real. However, if he struggles with self-doubt or has experienced emotional wounds from the past, he may find himself second-guessing his emotions, questioning whether they are valid, or even fearing that he will be let down. A man's upbringing and past relationships contribute to the way he processes his emotions. If he grew up in an environment where emotional expression was encouraged, where vulnerability was seen as strength rather than weakness, then he will have an easier time accepting and developing feelings. He will see emotions as something natural, something to be embraced rather than feared. But if he was conditioned to believe that emotions are a sign of weakness, if he was taught to suppress rather than express, then his emotional development will be much slower. He may feel deeply, but struggle to admit it, both to himself and to others. Another factor that influences how a man develops emotions is whether he has a history of emotional security or emotional unpredictability. If his past relationships have been filled with trust, respect, and consistency, he will have a foundation that allows him to develop feelings more freely. But if he has experienced betrayal, manipulation, or sudden emotional shifts, his mind will be wired to approach emotions with caution. He may hesitate, withdraw, or even suppress his emotions because his past experiences have conditioned him to expect instability. A man's emotions do not just depend on what he feels in his heart. They are also shaped by what his mind tells him about those emotions. If he has a mindset that encourages self-trust and emotional openness, his feelings will evolve naturally. But if his mind is filled with doubts, insecurities, or fears about emotional vulnerability, he will struggle to fully embrace what he feels. This internal battle between heart and mind is what causes many men to appear emotionally distant, when in reality, they may be feeling more than they are willing to express. The way a man processes emotions is also tied to his need for certainty. Unlike impulsive emotional reactions that come and go, deep emotions require a sense of stability that reassures him that what he is feeling is real. He does not want to develop feelings only to realize that they were based on false expectations. This is why he takes his time, why he observes, why he evaluates before fully committing to what he feels. If he senses that the emotional connection is genuine, that it is built on something real, he will allow himself to dive deeper. But if he feels that it is based on temporary excitement or surface level attraction, he will hesitate. Another key factor in how a man embraces emotions is whether he believes he can be his true self without judgment. Many men are conditioned to believe that they must always present a strong, controlled, and unemotional exterior. They are taught to suppress, to hide, to never appear vulnerable. But true emotional connection requires a space where he feels that he can be his authentic self. If he repeatedly experiences moments where he can share his thoughts without fear, where he can express his emotions without being seen as weak, then his feelings will deepen naturally. But if he feels that he must always maintain an emotional shield, his heart will resist full attachment. A man's emotions are not just shaped by his internal world, but also by the external reinforcement he receives. If he consistently experiences appreciation, respect, and emotional reciprocity, his mind will encourage him to deepen his emotional connection. His feelings will not be driven by momentary excitement, but by the reassurance that what he is feeling is meaningful and lasting. On the other hand, if he feels ignored, misunderstood, or taken for granted, his emotions will begin to retreat. His mind will instinctively protect him from investing in something that does not provide emotional security. Physical presence and shared experiences also play a major role in how a man processes emotions. While words can be meaningful, a man's emotional attachment is often built on real-life experiences that reinforce his feelings. The way someone makes him feel when they are around, the energy they bring, and the way they interact with him in different situations all contribute to his emotional development. If he consistently experiences warmth, understanding, and genuine connection, his feelings will deepen. But if he notices inconsistencies, emotional distance, or a lack of genuine connection, his emotions will remain guarded. A man's emotional development is also influenced by whether he feels that his emotions are valued. No one wants to invest emotionally in a space where their feelings are not acknowledged or appreciated. If he feels that his emotions are dismissed or treated lightly, he will subconsciously begin to detach. But if he feels that what he shares is valued, that his emotions are met with the same level of sincerity, he will feel encouraged to open up further. The more he sees that his emotions are respected, the more he will trust them. The process of developing deep emotions is not something a man does consciously. It happens as a result of repeated experiences that shape the way he feels. His emotions are built on the foundation of trust, security, and consistency. He does not just feel deeply because of one moment. He develops feelings through a series of moments that reinforce his emotional connection. His heart and mind must align before he fully embraces what he feels.